How's it going, everybody? This is Double Wide 6, and today I have a video for you. I'm going to be sharpening the blades on my Echo hedge trimmer. I just picked this up last night, used, paid $100 for it. Starts right up, runs great, but the blade's a little bit dull, so I figured I'd try and sharpen it. I've been watching a couple videos on YouTube. I saw one from, I think it was Backwoods Country Boy. He has a pretty good video on how to sharpen up your teeth, so I figured I'd give that a try. He did his on a still. This one is an Echo HC150, and he mentioned that the Echoes are a little bit tricky to do because they have a geared cutting head that requires the proper timing to get your teeth aligned right. So I'm just going to try and go through the process of what it takes to sharpen this. So as you can see, I've got this hedge trimmer flipped over. First thing I'm going to do is make a couple witness marks so I know how this thing goes back together. First of all, I'm just taking a paint marker. I'm going to put a little white dot here, and I'm going to put a little white paint dot here, so I'll know that those two pieces will be facing up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 3mm Allen wrench, and we're just going to go through and we're going to loosen up these Allen bolts on the bottom of the cutter head. So there's 6 of these. So I'm going to take those off and we'll pull the cover. So this is our last Allen nut to remove the cover. And we're just going to carefully pull up the cover and take a look at what's inside. You can see some grease. And we can see the gears. So here's a better look at inside the gearbox, and one thing that I've taken notice of is right here there's actually a timing mark, this little circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dental tool here and I'm going to put a scratch right on this smaller gear on the mating tooth so that we have that timing right. I don't see any mark on the smaller gear, that's why I'm going to put a little scratch there. So when I put it back together, I'll know it goes there to line up those two. So if you're very careful, there's a real delicate gasket that you can remove here. So I'm just going to take that off real carefully, set that down on the table, and there's a little bit of a fiber pad here that just kind of holds the grease and keeps the dust out, and I'm carefully removing that as well. And the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take off your main gear. This should slip right off. I'm just going to set that on the table, and now we have access to our first blade. So we need to loosen up these bolts, and we should be able to take off our blades. So I'm going to carefully remove these bolts. They are number 10 metric, and I'm just going to take my ratchet and carefully loosen them up. They're not tightened down hard when you put them back on. In fact, they have locking nuts, and they're left a little loose so that there's some play for the blades. Alright, so I removed all the bolts holding together the blades. I guess there's 2 blades and a guard. And I also took the time to take a paint pen and label that as the bottom. This one will go on top. There's a witness mark there, and I put a number 2 here. So what we're going to do is we're going to carefully pick up, and as you can see, this removes. This is our bottom blade. That'll be the first blade that we sharpen. And the next thing in line is a washer. The next thing in this gearbox is a real thin washer. I don't think it really matters, you know, how this washer is positioned. In other words, these little holes, I don't think have anything to do with the washer. So I'm just going to carefully pull that out, and we'll set that to the side. And the next thing that we're going to be able to do is remove our top blade, and that's going to be the last thing that you need to remove from the saw. And now we're ready to do our sharpening. Alright guys, we're going to take a minute here to talk a little bit about sharpening. Basically I just have a shop rag in my vise to help protect the metal a little bit and kind of keep some of the grease on there. And we're just going to take this cutting blade and we're going to put it in the vise, and I'm going to be using a grinder to sharpen these teeth, a handheld grinder. So we'll lock it in place like that, and we're going to get up our grinder and we're going to focus on sharpening. So now that I have it secured in the vise, we're just going to take our handheld grinder and we're just going to try and match the same profile that exists on the blade. So you just want to be kind of light and delicate, and we'll start sharpening the teeth. We're going to do one side of the tooth, so I can do like this side here, and then we'll flip the blade over to get the other side, and I should be able to do the teeth on this side as well, the upper angle for these teeth. So I'm just going to work up the blade. I might have to take my hand to help support the blade a little bit. So as I sharpen, I'll take my hand and I'll hold it on here to keep the blade from wobbling. You could also lower it in the vise, but I think it's quicker just to take your hand and hold it. Sometimes you'll find you can't get all the teeth, or it might be left-handed for you to be able to get the teeth. So, you know, you have to feel free to move it in your vise. I'm positioning it somewhat horizontally. So this angle is going to work better than me trying to work left-handed. So I have it clamped in the vise again, and we're going to try and sharpen up the rest of the teeth. Alright, so as you can see, the blades are now sharpened. I got both sides of each tooth. Because I was using the grinder, I didn't want to push too hard in these corners, so you might see a little bit of black. It's actually just paint, and actually the inside corners of these are not really chewed up too bad. It's more the outer part of the tooth. So rather than screwing it up, I just, you know, tried to lightly grind in those corners, but they're sharp, even though it looks like a dark spot. Things look good. So next thing we want to do is take our blade and we're going to flip it over, and on the back side we're just going to lightly grind away any burrs that we might have on either side of the teeth. So we'll set this up and do a little grinding there. So for this operation, I'm just leaning it down on the workbench, and I'm supporting it with my left hand, and I'll be grinding with my right hand, and we're just going to lightly knock away any burrs. Excuse the reach. And we'll just continue that process right down the blade. A little bit hard to show on camera, but I'm just going to clean up any nicks and burrs. Last step in this process is just going to be to take a little bit of compressed air, and we want to blow off any metal filings or anything that you wouldn't want on your blade. So I'm just taking a little compressed air. And now we're ready to reinstall. Alright, so now we're ready to put this thing back together. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our top bar. We're going to make sure that we have that positioned properly. And we're going to drop it right in the gearbox exactly the way it came off. So we'll just line that up the way we need it. And I'm going to take a little bit of grease, this white, I guess it's like a lithium grease, and just going to smear a little bit of extra grease on there. Want to make sure that this thing is timed properly, otherwise it's just going to vibrate and not cut. So I'll get this on there right. Next thing that needs to go on is going to be the washer. So here's our washer. And I'm just smearing a little bit of grease on there as well. And the washer will just go right on. Looks good. Now before I put on the top blade, or actually the bottom blade because I have it upside down, I'm just going to spray a little bit of fluid film on here to help lubricate it. I guess you could use fluid film or WD-40. That should help. And you always want to apply that when you're trimming the bushes. Now we're going to put on our bottom blade, and once again you want to put the flat surfaces of the blade mating against each other. So this will just go right on here like this, and then we're going to fit on our gear, and we're going to line up our timing mark. So we're going to take the timing mark on the gear. So I've taken my time to line up my timing dot right here. This timing dot is lined up with the witness mark that I actually made in the gear here. So once that's lined up, I took a look. I took this dental tool, I took the handle of it, and if I spin this gear and watch the teeth, I can see that they're going from one tooth all the way over to the other tooth. So that means that it's going to cut. If you don't have it timed right, it might follow, one blade might follow the other blade. So it's kind of hard to show on the camera because I'm spinning this thing with my hand and trying to balance the saw. But as you can see, you want the teeth to travel all the way from tooth to tooth so that it'll cut through the tree or bush. So we attached our bolts. Next thing we're going to do is put in this little felt grease stop, dust stop thing that just pops in place like that. Looks good. We're going to take our gasket ever so carefully and put this on here. This will help keep out dust and seal in the grease. So we just want to get that lined up properly. Came off pretty well, I think, because there was grease underneath it, so it wasn't too bad to get off. And then finally, we're going to take our cap, and Echo allows us to grease this later. There's actually a grease zerk on the top side of the machine. So our gasket looks lined up. We're going to take our Allen bolts and we're just going to secure these in here with these 3mm Allen bolts. Alright, so I'm just securing up these Allen bolts. As I said, I'm not a professional, and this is actually the first time I ever tried to take on sharpening a blade like this. I'd be curious from any expert how you line up the timing on these Echo trimmers. I'm not exactly sure how to do it. It's a good thing that I carefully took it apart and kind of marked where I wanted it as far as the gears, so I know I got it back together right, but there's probably a simple way to get it in case you lose track of what you're doing. So if there's any expert in there that wants to chime in or even give us a video response, that would be awesome. But we're putting this back together, and we're going to tighten up the nuts on the other side of the blade, and we'll see if it works. And when I say the nuts on the other side of the blade, I'm talking about the lock nuts for the hedge trimmer. So I'm just going to snug these up angularly just to make sure that they're tight. So I just want to talk about tightening these bolts here. In order to tighten these, you don't want to make them too tight. So if we look at the bottom of the bolt here, this is actually threaded. So when you put the bolt in, you're going into a threaded hole. What you want to do is put that bolt in, take your 10mm wrench, and once you get it tight, come out about half a turn or 3/4 of a turn. So you want to leave some space here for that washer. That washer should move a little bit. Once you have that head out about half a turn, you want to hold it in place and then tighten the nut on the other side. Okay, and you're just gonna tighten the nut, just snug it up, and then back it off half a turn, because you actually want to leave it loose. There shouldn't be these blades shouldn't be too tightly held together. So that's how those are tightened. Just take your time with it. You want to get it right, and make sure that you lubricate these blades with either WD-40 or fluid film or something of the like. One other thing that I wanted to mention is that Echo was nice enough to give us a grease zerk down here, so you can add your grease. Echo makes a product called something like Power Blend. It's sold at the at your Echo dealer. It's basically a white lithium grease, and you can put it right in that zerk. Comes in a tube that kind of looks like toothpaste, and that's how you'll grease it. I did not grease this one yet because I don't have the grease, so I'm going to pick that up and I'll top it off with grease just to make sure. But I didn't lose much grease at all when I did this project, so I just thought you wanted to know that. So I finished up the job here, and I went out, I did some trimming, and this thing is noticeably nicer as far as the cut. You know, the blade wasn't in terrible shape, but it is a much easier cut. The timing all seems to be right, and everything seems to be working real well. I'm very pleased with this particular operation. So I hope this can help out anybody. As I said, this machine's an Echo HC150, and worked out pretty well. Trying to sharpen this thing, and if you want to subscribe, I'm double wide 6, and I have all kinds of repair videos, everything from small engine to building a shed, plumbing. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your small engine repairs. Thanks.